That in the first book.
Dr. Brzezinski, can you sort of lay out in the way that you do so well, so the rest of us can understand it, the complexity of the country that is Pakistan, where we say we need to engage Pakistan better now? Who are we engaging exactly? Are we engaging the government? Are we engaging the ISI? Are we engaging the people who claim to be helping us in the fight against terrorism, or those who we suspect helped harbor Osama bin Laden? How do we manage that relationship?
Well, as far as the last point is concerned, we of course have very good grounds for fearing that they were lying to us. But nonetheless, even though they may have been lying to us, and some of them probably were lying to us, we have to pretend that they're not lying and that we're trusting them. Emphasize the word pretend. Because Pakistan is critical to any acceptable outcome in Afghanistan. They have the means, through the Pashtuns, who in Pakistan are much more numerous than Afghanistan, but who in Afghanistan are almost half the population, to destabilize Afghanistan. And they view Afghanistan as a kind of surrogate battlefield in their endless contest with India, in which there are rights and wrongs both on the Pakistani and the Indian side. So the Pakistanis feel very self-righteous about it. In addition to it, we have to recognize that Pakistan is a complicated country, simultaneously quasi-modern, urban, simultaneously practically medieval, with institutions of power of the government, sort of autonomous units almost in a feudal kind of a system, so that you cannot be entirely sure that all of ISI has been, so to speak, complicit in some fashion against us. But certain major elements. You can go on and say the same thing about the army, then about the police, and then about the civil service. So it's a convoluted situation in which we have to be clever, play it as something that is necessary to the end game, but hopefully create circumstances in which the end game comes fairly soon.
John Meacham?
How would you define the end game, sir?
I would define it on two levels. And it's something that actually I have been saying, so in a way I'm countlessly repeating myself, but I've been saying this for 3 years. One, whether we like it or not, we have to start talking directly or indirectly with the Taliban. And the Taliban is not the same as Al-Qaeda. And what happened several days ago further emphasizes that, because the Al-Qaeda input, the ability to work with the Afghan Taliban, is going to be now much, much reduced. So let's see if we can get a dialogue going. The Taliban is a decentralized movement. And of course, the dialogue has to be conducted by the Afghans, not us. If that begins to show promise, we ought to structure an umbrella over it, a kind of international sanctioning, supportive, reinforcing umbrella, composed, first of all of the states that neighbor in Afghanistan. And let's remember where they are: Pakistan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, and last but not least, by any means, Iran. And then several powers in the back of that circle, because they are indirectly involved or could be involved: Russia, India, and China. And of course, you know, if you have a conference, you want your European allies, because they have been involved in NATO too. And you try to create kind of an understanding regarding the acceptance of a vaguely modernizing, somewhat decentralized Afghanistan as an independent state.
Doctor, I'm going to try and ask this the right way. It's going to sound like a naive question, but I'm going to...
No, those are the usually dangerous ones.
You talk about making these connections with the different factions and the different Pakistans. Human to human, how does that happen? What is the game plan within a White House? When you, like, who's reaching out to who? How does that play out? Because at the end of the day, these are human beings. You know, we talk in the abstract about these countries and these factions, but it's this guy and that guy and that guy. On our end, it's this guy, that guy, that guy. How does that play out?
Well, if you're talking about the end, in the end, it's Karzai and Omar. But in the meantime, and much more importantly, it's Karzai and his representatives, his relatives, his dependents.
But don't say when you use representatives. So who at the White House is reaching out to?
I'm not talking about the White House. I'm talking about the Afghans doing it with our encouragement, because we have the means also to impede it. But it has to be done by the Afghans, which means all of this ethnic, tribal, family relationships have to come into play. A lot of these people know each other. even though they're fighting against each other or killing each other. But they have to do it. We cannot do it. We can participate indirectly in the dialogue because there'll have to be some conditions. There'll be some accommodations, some bribes, some inducements.
That's kind of what I'm asking.
Force.
Like, how does it get done? I mean,
Well, the point is, it's not simple. It's a process of indirection on that level. And of course, we would be much more formally involved and directly so on the so-called umbrella level that I talk about, the international context.
Dr. Brzezinski, if we could go back to Sunday night in that Situation Room, we've seen the dramatic photograph we've been showing this morning with the President, Hillary Clinton, the Vice President, and others. You've been in the room for, I don't want to call it similar situations, but for very dramatic moments in the nation's history. Take us inside there. What is it like? What is the tension level like? Especially with modern technology, we understand they were watching parts of this on video.
Well, not in live, not in real time, I don't think. I think they were watching Panetta and talking to him through the screen.
Oh, the perception, I think, for most people is that these guys had little cameras and micro, and you're watching this go down. Wasn't that the perception?
I don't think so. I don't think
that so. That was what was out there. But yeah. What must it have been like in there?
Well, I still have a little card. I have it in my briefcase, actually, in which various critical phases were indicated in Eastern Daylight Time. Of course, it was in the middle of Iran, so it was probably about 8 hours later there. And, takeoff, first landing, rendezvous of the helicopters with the Delta team that was supposed to go in. That's a very complex operation. First words begin to come in that one of the helicopters had to turn back because of the sandstorm, so we're reduced pretty much to the minimum. But we rendezvous. We're anticipating the next phase, which was going to be the Delta team takes off, flies to a hiding place close to Tehran. So that's stage 2. And then stage 3 is during the night, after 1 full days of hiding, the crew is driven into town, the Delta team, and assaults the embassy, and the helicopters proceed to land in nearby stadium for the extraction. Then they move to the airport that was going to be kind of controlled, and everybody would be flown out. So it was a very complicated operation. Well, around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I got word that there is a problem with the helicopters, and that the question is whether the mission should continue, because another one was malfunctioning. So I went in to see the president. I interrupted him, and I told him I have to speak to you immediately. And we went into the other room, and I told him, and then I said to him, look, sometimes in a situation like this, one takes a chance. I was rather perhaps not responsible of me to say that to him, but I did. And I said, why don't you ask the field commander whether he wants to proceed with the rest of the mission? And the president phoned the Secretary of State, Defense, and we asked, and he said, no, if it's below the minimum, we don't go on. So the order was given, depart, go back. And that's when the accident occurred. One of the other helicopters then collided with a plane that brought in the Delta team or something to that effect. In any case, the mission had to be aborted, but there were also people dead. So a few hours later, the president spoke to the country, took full responsibility for a very daring decision, which in Obama's case, had it failed, would have been similar. But Obama is getting the credit because nothing succeeds like success. Nothing fails like a failure. But the fact is, that was a gutsy decision regarding a very complicated plan. This was neater, more direct. And yet, when I heard about that helicopter, I sent a message to Donovan, simply saying, I know how you must have felt when you heard about the helicopter, because that's how I felt.
Amazing.
Wow.
I've actually never heard him talk about it.
I love the way you look at your dad when he's talking. I wish people could see that. It's very special.
Dr. Zbigniew Brzezinski, thank you very much. Thanks, Dad, for coming in. That was incredible.
Thank you, Dr. Brzezinski.